When you start looking for a new home, you have to weed out a lot of listings. Some of that obviously because of personal preferences, but others because they come with red flags and issues. So that's the topic for today. I want to walk you through the 4 most common categories. We're going to talk about honey traps, cheap flips, bargain deals, and of course fixer-uppers and the red flags that come with them, how to spot them, because if you don't, you will probably regret that purchase later. When I'm out with clients touring a property, most of my attention is actually looking for things that are specifically wrong with the house, some of the red flags. So my clients can pay attention to the floor plan, the layout, if it's big enough, and if they actually like the house. I always tell first-time homebuyers, you know you found a good one if the thought that somebody else is making an offer before you can makes your heart sink a little bit. But love also makes you blind, and that is the time to actually pause and take a moment to talk about some of the red flags and some of the issues, because it's important to know them. I was actually never able to talk somebody out of a house that they really liked, but I think it's important that you know about the issues and what you can realistically expect if you want to address them. Here's a quick background about me. My name is Marcus Auerbach, and over the last 15 years, I have remodeled a lot of homes here in the Milwaukee area, written a lot of checks to contractors, and believe me when I say you tend to learn quite quickly when your own money is on the line. As an agent over the last 9 years, I have literally attended several hundred home inspections and negotiated the outcome for my clients, and it probably also helps that I'm an engineer by trade. And all that experience and knowledge comes with me every time I'm touring a property with the client. When I was preparing for this video yesterday, I started by brainstorming a list of all the issues that I have encountered over the years. And some of them are pretty straightforward, like structural issues, basement issues, mechanical issues. Others are more rare and more complex, but all of them are quite consequential. And I quickly realized that the list has gotten way too long. I could barely rattle it off in the span of a YouTube video, so I decided instead to categorize them by deal type, and the first one we're going to look at is the honey trap. Here is what a typical honey trap property looks like. When you see it first online, it looks absolutely stunning. It's staged to perfection. It looks like Joanna Gaines was there and prepared it for a TV show. When you get there first on Saturday morning, there are cars parked up and down the street. Of course, it ends up getting 15 plus offers and selling way over asking price. But despite all the attention that it gets, it may actually not be a good house. The job of good staging is to capture your eye and capture your attention and distract you from what the naked house would look like. The problem with these types of honey traps is that oftentimes many of the major components that are quite expensive to replace have not been touched. And the issue is, of course, when the buyer first time sees the house without all the staging material and they're closing on the house, they realize that what they have bought was actually a really well done makeup job. In order to avoid this situation, I think it's best that after we're done with the showing, we get together on the outset and talk about what we have just seen. One of the things that I always go over is a 5-year maintenance budget. So that includes all the big ticket items that need to be replaced in the next 5 or so years. Let's say a roof, new HVAC system, plumbing issues, etc. Big ticket items, you get the idea. I think you can still move forward with an offer on a property like this, but at least you should factor in these expenses before you decide how much to offer on that property. The next category that we see quite often that is risky for home buyers are flipped houses, especially cheap flips. I'm sure you've seen a lot of flipping shows on TV, and obviously that's a mix of reality and entertainment, so you have to take it with a grain of salt. In all fairness, flipping a house successfully and actually turning a profit in reality is not an easy thing, which creates a lot of cost pressure on flippers and incentivizes them to focus on things that are very visible to buyers, like paint and carpet and maybe new cabinets, but disincentivizes them to address issues that are hidden from the eye, that are inside walls, like plumbing or electrical. The other concern that you have is that the work was actually not done correctly, and you may only find out if the kitchen cabinets are hung correctly after you've loaded them with all your heavy china and one of them didn't make it. But in all fairness, not all flips are not well done. There are a lot of home flippers who know what they're doing. They take great pride in the work that they're putting out there, and they deliver a really good product to the market. Knowing the difference is key. I have been rehabbing houses a lot, so I always enjoy looking at somebody else's work and seeing what they have done well and what was maybe not done so well. By the way, there is so many good real life stories out there. If you have one to share, if you had a problem with the house, please share it in the comments below. What was the problem? How did you find out? How did you deal with it? This is super valuable information and everybody wants to hear about it. The third category on my list is what I would call a bargain deal. So a typical bargain deal has been sitting on the market for a while without getting an offer. Maybe you have seen the list price come down 2 or 3 times. And in some cases, this can be an opportunity to look at, but you still want to be very careful. In many cases, it is just something like an avocado green carpet that you can change. But in some cases, it is related to things that cannot be changed, like a weird layout or the location or something else that is outside of your control. And you may be tempted by a listing like this because you're frustrated, the market is very competitive, and you can get a house for a really attractive price. But this is a very risky proposition because in 5 or 10 years, when it comes time for you to put that house on the market, you may find out the hard way of why it didn't sell in the first time. So resale value is always something that is on my mind. I assume that my clients are going to call me in 5 or 10 years when they want to list a property. And I want to make sure when I receive that phone call and they're telling me they want me to sell their house, that this is a good phone call for me and I'm not thinking, oh my God, how am I going to sell this house for them? A good resale value is also of strategic importance, especially for first-time home buyers. When you're buying your first home, you probably had to painstakingly save money from your W-2 job in order to come up with the 5 or 10% down payment for the first house. When you're buying your second home, hopefully you have generated a large amount of equity in your first home. When you put it on the market and you sell it, this is going to become the down payment for buying your second home. Category number 4 are fixer-uppers. And yeah, we have a lot of fixer-uppers in the Milwaukee area. When a homebuyer is telling me that they're okay with the fixer-upper and they want to do some of their own work, this is usually great news because it allows us to sidestep the brunt of most competition and get into an area of the market that is a little bit less competitive and where we have more room to negotiate. The issue is that a lot of first-time homebuyers do vastly underestimate how much time and how much money it will actually take to fix up a property. Analyzing some of the rehab jobs that we have done over the last years, I can tell you that we often spend between 600 and 800 contractor man hours on a full gut rehab. If you do the work yourself, you can assume that you probably take 2 to 3 times longer than a contractor would, so that very quickly makes it 1,200 to 1,800 hours, which is basically an entire work year. And then you also have the cost of materials, which is typically about 50% of your entire budget. And by the way, this is always cash out of pocket. The general rule with fixer-uppers is it always takes longer and costs more than you have originally anticipated. Even pros are stepping into the trap on a regular basis. So it can be still worthwhile to take on a property like this, but we would definitely want to make sure that the buyer understands the scope, the time, and the money that is involved in order to get that project completed. Regardless which type of property you're buying, there is always that concern of hidden issues, and some of them are a little bit more exotic, which means we don't see them that often, but if they happen, they can create a big liability. One example would be, for example, a buried oil tank in the backyard, because this becomes the issue of whoever is the owner, and the DNR may hold you responsible for not only removing that old oil tank, but also for removing the contaminated soil, all on your own dime. Another example would be an easement that's going across the property line. You may have a garage sitting on the property over a utility easement. All of a sudden, they need to excavate up straight through your garage, and they really don't pay for the damages because you shouldn't have had a garage there in the first place. So most of these items are typically just a suspicion that I have, and I want to double check and make sure everything is okay. And most of the time it turns out to be okay, but better safe than sorry, because overlooking something of this magnitude can potentially turn into a huge liability. When you're picking a real estate agent, you want somebody who is competent and who also gives it to you straight. In a past life, when I was still working a corporate career, I have bought and sold several houses, and I will never forget the experience and how it felt like working with real estate agents. So today, I try to be that agent that I was never able to find. So here's a personal story out of my life that recently happened, and maybe you can relate to it. So I was out shopping for a car and I found one that I really liked. So I asked if we could take it for a test drive. The dealer said, yeah, absolutely, hop in. And the sales guy came with me. And while I was driving the car and trying to get a feel for the engine, the brakes, the suspension, how everything felt, how everything operated, the sales guy was constantly talking to me about how great of a car that is, what my family is doing, what my last vacation was. And all I wanted to do is experience the car and experience the test drive. So that is just not helpful, and that is why we're taking a little bit of a different approach. So if you're thinking about buying or selling a home and you would like to have a chat with me about how this potentially would work, feel free to reach out. We're onboarding new clients all the time. A lot of people are sending me an email after they've seen some of my videos. My email address is m.auerbach@kw.com. You have my full contact information, including my phone number here just below this video. We also have a ton of other resources that you can use on our website, that is onpointrg.com. For example, you can request access to the MLS, or you can download one of our buyer or seller guides. And if you're not quite ready to engage, then subscribe to my channel. I'll keep you updated here with monthly market updates for the Milwaukee area, so you know what's going on, what the trends are, and you can follow the market until you are ready to make a move. And that's all I had for you today. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.